Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Poe, and today I'm doing week 17 of my 2020 reads. This week I managed to read a couple of different books, and some of them were even on my TBR. First, I finished Monstrous, Volume 4 by Marjorie Liu, illustrated by Sana Takeda. This is part of an ongoing fantasy, kind of dark, almost steampunk, Asian-inspired graphic novel series. It is just the most gorgeous in terms of artwork. From the cover you can tell that it's beautiful, but every single page has the kind of detail and beauty and just lusciousness of that cover, which I think is not always common in comic books. So I think that this book, just like all of the others in the series so far, has just such beautiful artwork, and that really elevates it because you just want to kind of stare at each page for so long. The story in this is a little complicated, but basically it follows a woman who has sort of an old god that inhabits her body, and the world is kind of a difficult one that has a lot of warring between different factions, between humans and non-humans. It's very complicated, but one of the things I really like about this story is how feminist it is. Almost all of the characters are women. Women are the ones who are powerful, who are making all the decisions. There's a few male characters here and there, but almost all the characters are women, and I just really like that. And the magic is very fantastical. I love just the world building in this. I did find that this volume, though, didn't work as well for me as some of the previous volumes, and I'm not sure if that's because I read it separate. So the first 3 volumes I read back to back, and then it's been now maybe a year since I read those that I'm reading volume 4. And that year was apparently a long time in terms of my memory because I had forgotten a lot of details. And when I started volume 4, I had no idea what was going on. I was completely lost. I actually had read half of this a month or 2 ago, and then I put it down and thought, I need to think about if I should go back and reread the previous 3 volumes before trying to finish this, because I don't get what's going on. And then this week I just decided, you know what, I just want to finish it because I'm not going to go back and read the other 3 right now. So I finished it, and actually the second half, it kind of came together more. But I was really lost in the first half. So that was a little problematic for me. However, I did really like some of the world building that happened, and the artwork is just so fantastic, and just all those feminist themes. I still really enjoyed this one, but I'm not sure that I would recommend having a gap between reading any of these volumes. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I finished The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. This is a sci-fi kind of dystopian novella that is nominated for the short works category of the BookTube SFF Awards, and I will link down below to information about those awards. This is a book that I was actually kind of excited to read. Sush had read this before even it made it onto the short list for the BookTube SFF Awards, and he said that he thought I would like it. So I went into this with pretty good expectations, and they were not met. I did not like this book. I think that Sush was right that the themes in this book were very much up my alley. I loved the topics and the ideas that it discussed. It is all about an immigration test, and it's questioning how we evaluate whether somebody is a good fit to be an immigrant, to join our communities, and how, in a sense, we prioritize different things about people and what we value, and also what the effect is on the people who have to go through these testing procedures. So there's a lot of good themes in this that very much do fit with my, my style, and I love books that address interesting concepts and get you to think. However, I basically just liked everything else about this book. I did not like the writing. I really hated the pacing. This is so fast-paced. This read like I would imagine a Michael Bay film would watch, in that it's so fast-paced and just constantly thing after thing after thing, and I was just exhausted. I really don't like that kind of pacing, and I also really don't like how manipulative the emotional aspect of it is. It's just, the author wants you to feel anxious and upset and so unhappy throughout this whole thing, and he forces you into that. It felt so manipulative, and I could not like the experience at all. I also just, I feel like the topic is actually something that in itself has a lot of seriousness and has a lot of things that should make you feel just naturally anxious. And to take that and amp it up so much felt very artificial to me. So the best way I can describe it is sort of like, I like cherries, real cherries, but I hate the artificial cherry flavoring that's sometimes used in like candies or food, right? I just find that is so overpowering, and it's not quite the same thing as the fresh cherries in terms of the taste, and I can't stand cherry flavored things, even though I love cherries. And so for me, especially after having just read Tell Me How It Ends, an essay in 40 questions, I did a standalone review for that, I'll link it below, by Valeria Luiselli, which is all about kids who are refugees who are coming to the US and have to basically apply for asylum. And that's also structured in the format of a bunch of questions. To have that, which is a nonfiction and is done in sort of a quiet manner and is so compelling and so emotionally wrenching, and then to read right after that the test, which just dramatizes all of that in a way that felt needless to me, it was such a bad contrast. I did not like this book, even though I did like the ideas. So for the sake of the ideas in this, I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars, but truthfully, if this book had been any longer, I would have just DNF'd it. The next book that I finished, luckily, worked a lot better for me. So next I finished Furthermore by Tahereh Mafi. This is a middle grade fantasy that was actually on my TBR for March and April for my priority for Middle Eastern and Indian heritage. So I'll put a link down to that below. And I really enjoyed this, and I was so glad to read something actually on my TBR. This is about a girl, Alice, who lives in a land where everybody has magic, and their magic is often shown and related to colors, but she herself is colorless, so she doesn't have any color in her hair or her skin or anything like that, and so she's very much, you know, on the fringes of society because of that. But she and another boy have an adventure where they go to a different magical land where everything is a bit topsy-turvy. This story is very much like Alice in Wonderland in a lot of ways. The fact that they go into this kind of alternate world, and there's so much in here that really refers to Alice in Wonderland, things like using the term, the phrase curiouser and curiouser, things like that. So I'm sure that this is meant to be kind of an homage to Alice in Wonderland, and I found that there was a lot of similarity there. There's a lot of that kind of ridiculousness of situations and kind of conversations that make no sense, and a lot of that kind of nonsensical humor that it can be a little bit over the top, but it also can be something that's really enjoyable for what it is. I really liked a lot of those aspects. I loved the world building in this. I thought that the world building was just so fantastical. Just things that, you know, you're not following the traditional tropes. You don't have elves and orcs and all these sorts of things. You have a very unique magical world with such beauty. The gorgeousness of the descriptions and the world building and the settings and the fantastical characters and magic systems. I loved the world building in this, and it also had a lot of heart, which again, this is one of the things about middle grade. There's a lot of growth and a lot of questioning of sort of, how do you get along in the world? And if you're hurt as a kid, how do you overcome that and become a better person? So I loved all of these aspects, but the writing style is something that can be a little overpowering at times. If you're the sort of person who, like, if you start this book and you think, oh, I'm not sure if I like this writing style, you're probably not going to like the book, because the writing style can be a big part of what makes the book unique, but it also is pretty intense. And I found that reading this was a little bit like eating chocolate fudge, where I do like fudge, but I can only have like a couple bites at a time, and then I need a break because it's just so rich and so intense. And I found this book was like that, where even though it's a middle grade and reads very fast, I had to kind of do it in chunks because it was very immersive and rich, but sometimes a little overpowering. So I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I definitely plan to read the sequel to this. And lastly, I finished Other Words for Home by Jasmine Warga. This is another middle grade, although it is a contemporary, and it's actually told in verse, which I love. This focuses on a little girl and her mother from Syria who leave due to political unrest and join her uncle in the US, and it's all about that kind of immigrant experience. This is something that was not on my TBR, but definitely fits in my Middle Eastern and Indian Heritage Month priority. So I'm really glad that I read it, and I loved this so much that I am going to do a standalone review for this, although it might take me a week or two to get that up. So I'll just kind of briefly talk about what I loved here, and then in that review I will talk more about it. But basically, this story is not only gorgeous in terms of the writing, I love middle grade in verse, it's so beautiful, but it is so awesome in terms of capturing that experience of being an immigrant, and that, especially that experience of, you know, feeling like you're lucky because you get to go to a place where you can realize a lot of your dreams, and where maybe you're safe from some of the things that are happening that are dangerous back home, but at the same time very unlucky because you're separated from, you know, your family back home, from your friends, from your heritage, and just this kind of juxtaposition of both liking and disliking being an immigrant, and the loving certain aspects and hating certain other aspects. I loved that kind of dichotomy, and I loved the way that the experience was portrayed. I think it was done so well. So yeah, this was a beautiful, beautiful novel. I'm pretty sure it's won some awards, and it deserves them. So I will do a separate review of this, but suffice to say, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and I highly, highly recommend it. Okay, so that wraps up week 17 for me. If you've read any of these books, or you have any thoughts or any recommendations or anything else, go ahead and leave me a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. Also, I do plan to have a vlog go up later on this week. I did a weekend reading vlog, sort of a attempted 24 in 72 over the weekend / long weekend, kind of coinciding with the whole Dewey's 24-hour readathon, these sorts of things. Basically, I did a readathon, I did a vlog with some success, and I will have that up later on this week, and a bunch of the books that I just talked about were ones that I read over this. So if you like vlogs and you want to hear kind of my thoughts fresh as I was reading the books, go ahead and check that out.